So, Father Mark, greeting all of my parishioners at presentation of the Blessed Virgin Mary Parish. God bless all of you. And once again, happy Easter season. The resurrection of the Lord fills us with joy and hope. And certainly our hope is that soon, hopefully in a matter of weeks or hopefully not months, we'll be able to once again join together in the church. But in the meantime, we're sheltering at home, and so today I'd just like to share a little Bible study, just a 10-minute whirlwind tour of the Gospel of John. So this is just going to be basic, bare bones Bible study of the Gospel of John, because you know this year is the year of Matthew. You may know that almost every Sunday this year we're hearing from the Gospel of Matthew, and we've been having Bible studies, learning all about the Gospel of Matthew. And the Gospel of Matthew grows on you as you get to know it. It's the longest one. It's the one that has the most Jewish flavor to it. It emphasizes a lot. This year we're learning that it emphasizes a lot the temple, that Jesus comes and he comes to establish the church, which is the new temple, the new Jerusalem, the new Israel, the new place of gathering for the people of God, which is the church with the 12 apostles. And but anyway, that's the Gospel of Matthew. But again, this year, during the we're here in the Gospel of Matthew this year, but it happens that every year during Lent and during Easter season, that's a time dedicated to the Gospel of John. So it's every year that we hear from the Gospel of John. The Catholic Church loves the Gospel of John because we always hear it, especially in the last weeks of Lent. On Sundays, we get the long miracle stories, sometimes on Sunday. And then during the Easter season, weekday masses and also Sunday masses, we hear from the Gospel of John. And so what is it that it makes the Gospel of John different? Well, I've been learning, reading some things and listening to some things on some CDs and on audio Bible studies about the Gospel of John. And the Gospel of John is all about signs. You know, in the Bible it talks about signs and wonders. You know, God performed signs and wonders for the Israelites as they escaped from Pharaoh and from Egypt. Wonders or miracles. But in the Gospel of John it emphasizes more the word signs. And the Gospel of John was written later than the other three Gospels, which talk about the life of Jesus. And so the Gospel of John assumes that you've already heard about all the miracles and all the things that Jesus did. So the Gospel of John doesn't do everything. It doesn't try to cover all the things Jesus did. It just focuses on a small number of them. And the experts in the Bible have always argued about the signs and the fact that it seems that there should be 7 signs, because it looks like there's 6 miracles, but 6 is kind of a dirty word in the Bible. It's kind of a unlucky number. It's the number 666. It's the number that's it's the day that the 6th day man was created, but the 7th day is the day of rest, the day of the Lord. And so if you stay with 6, you're kind of stuck in the human, in the earthly, and that's not good. And so the devil doesn't want us to go beyond into the heavenly Sabbath with the Lord. And so 7 is the number of the covenant of unity with God. And so it's a special number. And so the Bible experts, argue, because in the Gospel of John, starting at the beginning with chapter 2, St. John talks about the first sign was the changing of water into wine. And at the end of the story of the miracle, it says very clearly, this was the first sign that Jesus performed. It says this was the first of his signs, chapter 2, verse 11. So that's the first sign. The second sign also is neatly numbered. He's careful to explain that in chapter 4, the healing of the royal official's son is cured. Jesus says the word, and the fever leaves this young man right away. And your son will live. And then it says this was now the second sign. Then the problem is, the rest of the Gospel of John, John doesn't number them. They're not numbered anymore. So you kind of have to, and they argue, they try to guess which one is a sign. In chapter 6, you get one which was a great miracle, the multiplication of the loaves and the fishes. That's quite a miracle. And sure enough, that story begins with, in verse number 30, the people or the Jews are kind of challenging Jesus. They're not sure if they believe in him, and they're kind of saying, well, what sign will you give us? He's already done several miracles, but now they're still, what sign will you do that we may believe in you? And that's when Jesus starts to talk in this chapter 6 about how you must eat my flesh and drink my blood. I am the bread from heaven. I am the bread of life. So apparently that really is a great sign. The multiplication of the loaves and the fishes and the whole miracle of the Eucharist seems like that's number 3. Okay, so it's called a sign. What sign can you give us? And Jesus starts talking about that. And so we have that in chapter 6. And then after that, as I mentioned, there's some argument as to which of the signs, how they're numbered. There is, let's see, I skipped one. There's also a sign in chapter 5, which is the healing on the Sabbath. Jesus cures a paralytic on the Sabbath day among the portico of Solomon, which archaeologists have found in the 20th century. Is very exciting that they realized that this was a historical place, this portico, this place where the waters, there was a miraculous pool, and but Jesus cures this man, and that is in chapter 5. Chapter 6, you had the miracle of the loaves and the fishes. And then as you get further along in the Gospel of John, you get some biggies. It's kind of like the fireworks begin. The signs get bigger and bigger. So chapter 9, what's chapter 9? That's the whole chapter is dedicated to the healing of the blind man, the man born blind. And we always hear that in Lent. So we heard that some weeks ago, and we preached about that miracle. Chapter 9 is the healing of the man born blind. And then 2 chapters later, we have chapter 11, which is also read in Lent, the raising of Lazarus. Jesus raises up his friend who had died. And that, of course, is kind of the miracle of miracles. You can make someone come alive again. That's incredible. And so that is also apparently, obviously, one of the 7 signs. Are there 7? Well, it kind of stops there. And the rest of the book is called the Book of Glory. The scripture scholars say that the rest of it is dedicated to, Jesus, his hour of glorification. He's going to be raised up on the cross. He gives his body and blood so that all may have life. It's the Book of Glory, the glorification of Jesus on the cross and in the resurrection. So it's called the Book of Glory in the Gospel of John. But the word sign is not used anymore. And it seems there's only been 6. So some people go back and they say, oh, maybe the walking on the water. Maybe that was one of them. That's in John's Gospel. But actually that was kind of something that done privately for the apostles only in the little boat. So it wasn't a sign that was very public. So many say that it seems unsatisfactory. There seems to be only 6 big signs. But very interesting, and this is what I wanted to share today, that I learned the other day. Maybe I learned it in the seminary but forgot it. But that's what this time of pandemic is for. We stay home, we check on YouTube to figure out how to fix things and how to do things, and we learn things over again. So I've been learning about the Gospel of John the last few days, and I learned that the last sign, the 7th sign, is mentioned in chapter 2 of the Gospel of John. Because it's very interesting. Right after the wedding of Cana, when Jesus changes water into wine, all of a sudden, Jesus does the cleansing in the temple. It's very interesting in John's Gospel. You've got it right then at the beginning of Jesus' ministry. He goes into the temple and he turns over the money changers' tables, and he chases out all the merchants, and he says, this is my Father's house, a house of prayer. You're making it a den of thieves. And he's casting out the money changers. And everybody is upset, or the leaders are upset, who is this guy? And what do they say to him? They say, cleansing the temple, chapter 2, and in verse number 18, it says, the Jews then said to him, what sign have you to show us for doing this? What sign will you perform? What sign? How can you prove that you have the authority to come in here and knock everything over in the temple? And what does Jesus do? He stands up. I can imagine him raising his arms, and he says, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. What sign will you perform? And Jesus alludes to his future resurrection, that on the third day he was raised from the dead. So the whole book of glory is about the seventh sign, the fact that Jesus would die, the temple would be destroyed, and he would be raised up on the third day. So, happy Easter. This is the seventh sign. This is the time of the seventh sign, the greatest sign, which is the greatest miracle that could be performed. Jesus not only raising someone else from the dead, but raising himself from the dead and giving us all hope and joy. So God bless all of you with hope and with Easter joy.